Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled Speed Contest, Scott and Rebecca. I'm referring to Scott Erickson and Rebecca Grossman. And I'm talking about the fatal car crash dating back to the height of COVID in September 29th, 2020. I don't know if you remember where you were during the height of COVID and essential businesses and closures, shelter in place, social distancing. September 29th, 2020, during the hoax pandemic called COVID. Well, first they called it the coronavirus. Then they quickly renamed it Certification of Vaccine Identity Artificial Intelligence, which stands for tethering the farm animals on the plantation, the humans, the clueless humans that wanted to obey the directives of the Ministry of Poppycock and Balderdash, Ministry of Truth, out of Geneva, Switzerland, known as the World Health Organization, part of the United Nations, and Swiss Bank Authority. There was no such thing as the coronavirus. There's absolutely no such thing as COVID. There's no such thing as bird flu or monkeypox. Those are all made up to get you full of graphene in a hoax vaccine and or get the smart dust, the mesogens, the mims and memos plugged into your skin, your nose, your pituitary glands, and your ovaries and your testicles. Smart dust, right? Mims and memos, molecular micro mechanical creatures that are sensors. And when they become part of your skin or your body or your organs, they become biological sensors, biosensors measuring your telemetry data and tethering you to the cloud 24/7. 24/7, turning humans into walking antennas, walking hard drives, human augmented zombie apocalypse. That's COVID, right? So a lot of people coped with COVID in different ways. Sadly for Rebecca Grossman, and she used grande margaritas over there at Julio's, and of course at her dear friends in Westlake Village Lake House Love Nest. The neighbors are the Hares, Hairs, good friends with Scott Erickson. They served up Rebecca a margarita at approximately 4:45 p.m. that afternoon. That was Taco Tuesday. That was going to be the evening of the riveting debate, presidential debate, fake president debate of Joe Biden and Donald Trump. There was going to be a presidential debate on Tuesday, September 29th, 2020. What a joke for the fake office of president, where neither of those clowns have any authority whatsoever. Anyway, that was the plan, to have a taco night. Taco night. That's what Rebecca was going to host. She was going to host a taco night at her love nest. She has a $13 million mansion in Hidden Hills, where the Kardashians live. Gated community in Calabasas, California. It's down Highway 101. Oh, I don't know, 15 miles south. Not far. Near Lost Hills, Los Angeles County Sheriff Substation at Lost Hills. Just past Lost Hills Sheriff is Calabasas and Hidden Hills. All right, stay with me. Hopefully, everybody is already up to speed with this whole Rebecca Grossman, Scott Erickson case. The most important part of the case is Scott Erickson. It's what Juxtaposition reports on. I report on what's important. And Rebecca Grossman, she killed the two boys, but you know what? So did Mike. So did Mike. So did Scott Erickson. He killed the two boys too. And I believe he hit one of the boys and spun him like a top, like a bowling pin, into Rebecca Grossman's front grille of her high performance Mercedes Benz AMG high-end suspension, race car suspension, bucket seats, and performance engine modifications done for Mercedes-Benz exclusively through AMG. Should know that Scott Erickson also has an identical car himself, a 2016 model of the same thing, color black. However, it's not been registered. He never registered that car. He never registered that car with the state of California. He never registered it with the state of Nevada. He never registered the car in Arizona, where presumably he came into possession of a high-end AMG GL model Mercedes race car in the state of Arizona, but he didn't register the car in Arizona, nor did he register it in Las Vegas or Nevada. He did not register the car in Calabasas or Van Nuys, California either. So how do you drive a car with no tags? How do you drive a car with no license plates? Well, I have an answer for you. It's called cold plating. Cold plating. If you're a criminal, you know what I'm talking about. Everybody knows what cold plating is if you're a felonious convict. Everybody knows. Scott Erickson knows. What you do is you take the license plate off one of your other cars and you unbolt it, and then you bolt it onto your unregistered race car. And then that way the police won't pull you over, because you know that the police or sheriff can pull you over if you're driving without a valid license plate visible. If you don't have that front and back bumper, that is probable cause for a pullover and an inspection as to the registration paperwork on your car. That's right. And Scott Erickson is keenly aware of that, and he'd been doing a license plate swap for many years prior to the September 29th, 2020 infamous day, where the two children, Mark Iskander and Jacob Iskander, ages 8 and 11, were killed in a crosswalk in Westlake Village area at Saddleback Mountain Road and Tiehago Canyon. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Speed limit is 45 miles per hour. There are 7 LED streetlights in the area illuminating the crosswalk. The accident happened in and around 7:10 p.m. when it was dusk, going dark, going pitch dark. It wasn't quite pitch dark. It was almost pitch dark. It was very, very dark. All 7 LED streetlights were illuminated, and there was reflective paint of the not only the crosswalk itself, but also the warning pedestrian crossing approaching, and the 45 mile an hour speed limit is clearly posted on both directions on the road. And there's Scott Erickson going over 80 miles an hour, probably around 82, 83, 84 miles an hour, going uphill from Ladera Canyon. He had accelerated probably from 25 miles an hour, which is about what you could do that extreme, almost hairpin turn onto Tiehago Canyon. He would have had to slow to about 25. Then he reaccelerates up to 80 miles an hour, and he is the lead car. He is the primary car. He is the lead out car. And behind him is his married girlfriend, Rebecca Grossman. She is 57 years old, and the steroid baseball pitcher for the Minnesota Twins, World Series winner. Scott Erickson is 52 years old, and he's leading this speed contest. And Rebecca, his married wife, girlfriend, they're racing home after they've had a minimum of 2 margaritas, 2 apiece. They've each had 2. And in the case of Scott Erickson, he's also had a half a dozen bottles of beer at the Stonehouse Restaurant Bar. And so he's loaded up on beer, and he switched over to the grande size margaritas over at Julio's agave grill. Julio's agave grill, where he's had two grande. That's the equivalent of four martinis on top of a minimum of six bottles of beer. The Scott is 6'4" and he weighs 245 pounds. So he can carry half a dozen beers and four margaritas and still drive at 80 miles an hour in a high performance Mercedes-Benz SUV. Now he's in a 2007 SUV. He's not in the same level of performance car that is the AMG sedan GL series for Rebecca. Nevertheless, you got a drunk driving Scott Erickson. Now, he wasn't tested, so we can't verify his blood alcohol level, but he had approximately four margaritas and six bottles of beer since 2:30 p.m. up until the time of the accident, 7:10. So you can do the math on that. In approximately 5 hours of time, in less than 5 hours, I got a guy who's had four margaritas and six bottles of beer. He's 6'4". He's 245 pounds. But juxtaposition, I don't care. I don't care if he's drunk. I don't care if he's sober. Going 80 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone with pedestrian crossing warnings. There are children out. There are baby strollers out. There are dog walkers out. There are cyclists out. There are runners out and about, and they're crossing back and forth through this crosswalk. And I got a guy who's almost double the speed limit, which meets the legal definitions of exhibition of speed, speed contest. There are two cars involved in this high speed chase. Rebecca Grossman's telemetry data computer indicated she was going 81 miles per hour before the crosswalk, 81 miles an hour. On impact, when the airbag was deployed, her car read 73 miles per hour, but that's after the scrubbing of the speed by hitting the two boys and deploying the airbag and lifting her foot off the accelerator. According to the telemetry data, Rebecca Grossman was 98% pedal to the metal. Her accelerator pedal was 98% down on the floorboards. 98% full throttle. 98%. 81 miles per hour. Then she clobbered the kids, the airbag deployed, and the speed was recorded at 73. Scrubbing 8 miles an hour off. Do you really care if she's drunk or not? She's had two margaritas, too. She's 5'6", 130 pounds. So, she's impaired one way or the other. Either she's sober and she's an idiot, or she's drunk and she's an idiot. She's chasing after her boyfriend, who's a drunkard, alcoholic. There's no question he's alcoholic. Scott Erickson is alcoholic. You heard it here first, people. He's alcoholic. He drinks alone by himself in saloons during the day. That qualifies you as an alcoholic on my channel. If you drink alone with a bartender supplying you your beer, all alone, at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, on a day when you should be out exercising or cooking barbecue, and you're sitting alone at a bar depressed like a loser that you are, you are a loser with a capital L, loser. You're alcoholic. Alcoholic, and you belong going to the meetings daily, every day, 7 days a week. Anyway, that's the story. Hopefully everybody's up to speed with that. But the part of the story that's untold is the Scott Erickson World Series pitcher and All-Star for 1991 World Series and All-Star Game, 1991. He played his career for a variety of teams. The Los Angeles Dodgers, which is what brought Scott Erickson out to Hidden Hills and San Fernando Valley, was playing baseball for the Dodgers in Chavez Ravine and Dodger Stadium. And he ended his career there. Also played for the New York Yankees and some other teams. Anyway, he fled the scene. And it appears there are numerous witnesses that heard two concussion sounds. The first sound was when Scott Erickson's car, probably going about 80 miles an hour, entered the intersection and clipped one of the boys. I don't know if it was Mark or Jacob. One was on a skateboard, one was on a scooter, and I believe that Scott Erickson hit one of the boys, just grazed him. And he didn't back off, he didn't brake, he didn't pull over, he didn't hit his flashing lights. He just continued on to the love nest, which he has the code for. There's no key to the house, it has a security cipher code. There's a code to get through the gate, and there's a code to get in the house. And Scott Erickson had both. It's not his house, it belongs to the Grossmans. Peter Grossman, who's the husband of Rebecca, it belongs to him. What better place to have an affair and an adulterous Taco Tuesday than at Peter Grossman's home with his wife, Rebecca? But see, Rebecca was 3 seconds behind Scott on the road, and at 81 miles an hour, 3 seconds comports to approximately 300 feet behind him. She's about the distance of one football field in distance. But you cover a football field in 3 seconds when you're going to 81 miles per hour. That's a football field in 3 seconds. It's 120 feet per second. You can cover more than a football field in 3 seconds. Now, Rebecca's view is obscured because, see, her boyfriend is in the crosswalk and he's clipping one of the boys, and his Mercedes Benz is black. Rebecca's is white. And she's focusing on the bumper. She's focusing on staying on that bumper of Scott Erickson. So she's not looking for the boys. She's not looking to see if there's pedestrians in the crosswalk. She's just looking to stay on the bumper. He's assuming that Scott Erickson is her lead out man and he's leading her to the love nest. And that's her entire focus, is just staying on the bumper of her boyfriend. But you see, what happens is he does hit something, and he does knock some parts off of his car, which will end up there on the road and be cataloged by one of the sheriff's deputies. He does break something off the front of his car, like from the fog lamps. He breaks something, like the chrome frame of a fog lamp and or a license plate frame. Anyway, it's a sound, and we have multiple witnesses that heard that sound. And then the boys are spun around and continue into the middle of the crosswalk, whereupon in just 2.5 seconds, bam, we have Rebecca Grossman clobbering both boys simultaneously. That makes one sound. Blood splatter all over the hood of Rebecca Grossman's high-end AMG modified Mercedes-Benz GL series. Uh, Jacob, AJ, he is thrown approximately 85 feet into the gutter. And Mark, age 11, he's catapulted 300 feet north of the sidewalk. He gets stuck on her car hood, and her airbag deploys. And how the Mercedes Benz works is that once an airbag is deployed, the engine loses power and glides to a halt. The engine is turned off in a gradual deceleration. Whether you apply brakes or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your foot is on the accelerator at 98% full throttle like hers was. The engine will be structurally disabled as a result of the deployment of the airbag, in case you didn't know. And that's exactly what happened. Is so as the car shuddered to a halt, Mark's body rolled off the hood, and then she drove over Mark um, because she didn't brake. So she rolls over him. He's dying. And then she ends up in the right side gutter. There's a number 2 lane and a number 1 lane. She's in the number 2 lane, and she parks there when her engine turns off with her airbag. And she gets out of the car with her party hat, and she looks at the damage of the front of the car. And there's no Mark Iskander there. It's just a stoved in Mercedes-Benz emblem, the grill, the license plate, the headlights are damaged. She hit something, and she doesn't seem to know what she hit. Maybe a deer, maybe a coffee can. maybe two little boys. All right. That's a story. But let me just tell you what I want to talk about here. I don't really want to crucify Rebecca Grossman. She's completely responsible for this crash, and she deserves to pay. She was given a 15-year to life sentence, and that means she'll be out in 4 to 5 years. It's been 4 to 5 years now. Normally, they would let her out now on probation, where she would be under supervised probation for a minimum of 3 years with an anklet and going to church and the grocery store and maybe finding a job if that's possible. Anyway, but they can't let her out right now because she's in the middle of a $100 million civil lawsuit for the wrongful murder, second-degree murder of two little boys with reckless disregard. Because we have a situation of basically what you would consider to be depraved moral indifference, complete disregard for public safety, reckless driving, implied malice, gross negligence. Certainly, it goes beyond manslaughter because the speed was so high at 81. Doesn't matter if you're drunk, doesn't matter if you're sober. You are going so fast in a 45-mile-an-hour zone that you are exhibiting depraved indifference, moral and depraved indifference, reckless driving, implied malice, exhibition of gross speed, speed contest, racing, two people racing. They're racing. It's a racing contest. It's a competitive race to get to the love nest, to make love, then tacos, then get the Joe Biden, Donald Trump presidential comedy hour put on. It's despicable in this clown show. I don't care about alcohol and I don't care about impairment. It's clear that these two people are felonious. These are felony crimes. They're second degree murder, and they're both guilty of it. They're both equally guilty. But the sheriff's department excluded and exempted Scott Erickson from this case. So I was wondering, why did he get a free pass, a hall pass for felony murder? This is a double felony murder. It's second degree felony, but it's a felony. And Scott Erickson fled the scene and he went home to the love nest, whereupon he confronted the 16-year-old daughter of Rebecca Grossman, who had just ordered pizza. She's 16. She attends the Oak Christian Academy High School down there in Calabasas. And Scott Erickson asked him, "Why did your mother stop? Why did she stop? Why didn't she just flee the scene like me?" Then, then Scott Erickson threatened Rebecca's daughter, Alexis, and he said, "You never saw me here. I was never here. And if you tell anyone that I was here, I will ruin your family." That's what Scott Erickson said. That's what he said when he was 52 years old. He's a steroided out pitcher in Major League Baseball, and he won a World Series for the Minnesota Twins. And he's a doped up, alcoholic, has been loser. And he threatens a 16-year-old little girl that if you ever tell anyone I was here, I will ruin your family. This is all evidence of his guilt, right? He fled a scene of a felony where two little boys, Mark and Jacob Iskander, ages 11 and 8, were mowed down in a crosswalk by a car going at least 73 to 81 miles an hour. And it would appear to me that Scott Erickson hit one of the boys, and then his girlfriend clobbered both of the boys, and they're dead. All right. Now, you should know that Scott Erickson has in his possession two black Mercedes. Now, they're slightly different models. One is the car that he clipped one of the boys with, which is a 2007 ML 450 SUV four-door. That was the car that he fled the scene with and clipped the boys with and broke his fog lamp frames. And in his garage, he has a 2016 GLC AMG, which is the sport package suspension and performance kit with the racing seats. That car is not registered. It's an illegal car. He's had that car for a number of years, never registered it. It's probably around $2,000 a year to pay registration fees on it, and he's been driving that car using the license plate from his SUV, which will give you the license plate if you're interested in it. I just so happen to have his license plate. LT3756, Nevada, registered in Nevada. His 2007 Mercedes SUV is registered in the state of Nevada, and the tag reads LT3756, 3756. He unbolts it and he bolts it onto his high performance Mercedes GLC 63, modified by AMG specifically for Mercedes Benz. That's a felony crime too. Did you know that? When you switch license plates, called cold plating, cold plating. When you switch a license plate from one car to another car with a different VIN number, vehicle ID number, VIN, it's a felony. Did you know it's a felony? Yeah, it's a felony. Did anyone ever arrest Scott Erickson for cold plating? It's called cold plating. No. Did the sheriff ever interview him? Yeah, a week after the accident. A week after the accident, the detective in charge at the time, he's now lives in Tennessee, Detective David Hewelson interviewed, he interviewed Scott Erickson a week after the death of the two boys. And he said, what car were you driving that night? And guess what? Scott Erickson lied like a rug. He said he was driving his 2016 GLC AMG sedan. That's a bald-faced lie. He was not. He was driving the 2007 ML450 with the license plate number of LT 3756. But during that week, he switched the plates back. He pulled the plates off that car and he installed them on the high performance car. And then he parked the car that was involved in the crash in a garage somewhere. Now, you should know that Scott Erickson has half a dozen houses with garages that he can park that car, including his sports agent. And you know his sports agent's name, right? Of course you do, because you've been following the Juxtaposition channel. And his sport agent is Jeffrey Boris. And you know Jeffrey Boris because Jeffrey Boris handles Jose Canseco. He handles Barry Bonds. He handles all steroided out athletes in baseball, like Kurt Schilling, right? Like Tim Lincecum, right? Those are some examples. Tim Lincecum takes steroids and blood doping, and you should know Barry Bonds does too. And you know that Jose Canseco does too. And Bobby Bonilla, he does too. They all take drugs. All of them use illegal drugs to play baseball, and they're all represented by Jeff Boris, who has homes in Malibu and Hidden Hills and probably Holmby Hills, but he has homes throughout the Malibu, greater Los Angeles area, and his clients get to use those homes. He can only be in one home at a time, right? And he has access to quite a few homes, meaning that they're owned by the military cult and that's assigned housing, and you can give the security code to whoever you want. So you should also know on the night of this accident, which again happened at about 7:10 p.m., we have a drunkard, Scott Erickson, and he contacts Frankie Longo, who's an attorney from Malibu, who's known as a fixer. He's a personal injury lawyer. He knows how to handle personal. We have two dead children, so that's a personal injury. And so we all had the wheels are turning. I'm sure Jeff Boris got a call that night. That's the first person I'd call was your sport agent who has power of attorney on you, and tell him to get the fixers involved. Make sure the sheriff doesn't come over here and look at my car. And do you know the sheriff when they did go over? Like I said, when the sheriff went over there, which was David Hewelson, he didn't look at the cars. At that time, he only knew about the one car, but he didn't look at it. He didn't look at the bumper. He didn't look at the fog lamps. He didn't write up an inspection report. He didn't ask permission to look in the car. He didn't get a search warrant to search the cars. So he just said, thank you for your cooperation. Appreciate it. Goodbye. That was the extent of the investigation of a man who participates in cold plating, felony crime, and flees a double homicide site. We have the lead detective, David Hurlson, just asked him, what car were you driving Tuesday night, Taco Tuesday night, September 29th, 2020? And he told him a lie, told him a lie, told him the car he wasn't driving. That was it. That's the entire investigative process concerning a man who fled the scene. Now, the district attorney later charged Scott Grossman with reckless driving, which is a misdemeanor. However, whichever lawyer, whether it was Freddie Longo or whether it was whether it was another gentleman by the name of James Silverstein from Calabasas, who's a personal injury lawyer, whichever lawyer it was, they called the district attorney of Los Angeles and said, my client is willing to do a public safety PSA advisory video aimed at high school teenage drivers to maintain their speed and be in compliance with the speed signs in and around their high schools, which the district attorney agreed to in exchange to drop the charges. So when I listen to me carefully, I have a guy who's engaged actively in cold plating, switching out his license plate onto unregistered cars, which is a felony, who fled the scene of a double homicide, second-degree murder of two little boys with reckless abandon, reckless driving, implied malice, speed contest, exhibition of speed, moral deprived indifference, and he gets a pass. There's no misdemeanor charge. There's no felony charges. There's no charges. But I do have a PSA public service video. Does anybody think that makes sense, right? Anyway, so Scott escapes, and then his girlfriend gets convicted for 15 years to life and is now being sued for $100 million. But they've named Scott Erickson as a co-defendant. So he's being reeled back in. He escaped the criminal trial, but he is now on trial effective April 27th this year, just 2 weeks ago, April 27th, 2026. Scott Erickson, who has not yet put his nose into the courtroom, he has an attorney. Rebecca Grossman, her attorney is Laura Grisley. And I don't really know what their defense is, but they're being sued for $100 million. And Scott's got to be just a little bit nervous that maybe the jury thinks since he was the lead dog on this car accident, he may or may not have hit one of the kids. He definitely was drunk. I mean, 6 beers and 4 margaritas. Well, they're 2 grandes, and a grande is 2 regulars. 4 margaritas and 6 beers, but it doesn't matter. He's still going 80 miles an hour into a crosswalk with children crossing at 7:10 p.m. And whether he hit the kids or not, he's obscuring the view of Rebecca Grossman, who then clobbers the kids 3 seconds later. So, look, my stick on this is they're equally guilty, and if they're found guilty for whatever it is, 100 million, then it's 50 million apiece. Rebecca is going to declare bankruptcy, so she's not going to pay. And Scott Erickson, he may declare bankruptcy too. In the meanwhile, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Lost Hills substation continues to disgrace itself. You know, the reason that I'm involved in this case is because of the Ann Heche fiery car crash that never actually happened in real life. That took me to the Grossman burn unit, which doesn't exist in real life either. That took me to Peter Grossman, who then took me to Rebecca, who had just killed these two kids, you know, approximately 9 months before the Ann Heche car crash. The Rebecca and Peter Grossman were dealing with a criminal case of second-degree murder of killing two kids, and then, you know, a civil lawsuit that would follow her conviction. She's been convicted, and now we have the civil case. 5 years later, 5 years after the accident. And the LA County Sheriff started out, first they assigned the case to Detective David Hewelson. Then he had some kind of nervous breakdown, so they gave it to Travis Kelly, who then passed it to Scott Sheen, who has it now. They're sergeants, two sergeants of the Lost Hills. Look, Lost Hills Sheriff's Substation is a disgrace. It has always been a disgrace. That's where they took Mel Gibson, who was pulled over for speeding. Then they turned it into a DUI driving. There's no evidence that Mel Gibson was drinking at all. He didn't There's no proof his blood alcohol level was high, but they hassled him for 12 hours and they took him to the Lost Hills prison cell. This is where the Kobe Bryant helicopter crash happened, right near this substation. This is where the Jose Menendez was going to move into Hidden Hills before he was killed in Beverly Hills. This is where the porn center is for Hollywood. This is where Santa Susana Research Laboratory is for Boeing, Aerojet, Jack Parsons Lab, JPL. The Manson family was filmed here, photo ops. There is no Manson family. This is where Krishna Venta and the Fountain of the World Church is in Box Canyon next to Spawn Ranch, Iverson Ranch, Corriganville Ranch. This is where this area is. This is where Priscilla Presley died mysteriously at a young age recently. This is where porn stars get run off the road in this area not that long ago. And this is where Ronald Reagan lived in Chatworth, which is there. This is where Charlie Manson had a home in Canoga Park, where Frank Sinatra lived, where Gregory Peck went to school. Gregory Peck, Ronald Reagan, Frank Sinatra, Charlie Manson, the Kardashians, Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn, where he lived. It's where the home for the Dodgers. This is where Scott Erickson lives, where Peter Grossman lives. This is where his girlfriend, the wife of Peter Grossman, Rebecca Grossman, is where she lives. It's where their daughter Alexis lives sometimes when she's not at the Love House, the lake house in Westlake Village, which is, again, it's about 15 miles up the road past Lost Hills. There's a boatload of felony murders in this area. Gary Francis Powers killed here too. Phil Hartman, Terry Kath of Chicago. Don't make me say things like, Richard Pryor, on fire from freebase cocaine. Michael Jackson, the Jackson Five, they lived here. You get the picture? It's a military cult kill box. Anyway, 68-year-old Brian Penish, an Irishman, he's the lead dog representing the Iskander family. He's taking the case, I'm sure, on contingency, and he'll get half. He'll get half. So if it's $100 million settlement, he'll be looking for $50 million. I don't know how he's going to collect it. It's one thing to win it, but OJ lost a civil case, but nobody got paid. The Goldmans didn't make any money on that deal, right? Got Frankie Longo. I got James Silverstein. And I got the shadowy character of Royce Clayton, a steroid baseball player for 17 years in Major League Baseball. He is a pseudo fake friend of Scott Erickson, right? And then I got the detective of this case, went off to Tennessee and had a nervous breakdown and left town. But you should know that Sergio Lopez, somebody told him to look into Scott Erickson's vehicles, and he found out that Scott Erickson doesn't like to register his vehicles, doesn't like to pay annual registration fees, and he likes to switch his plates around, which is a felony crime. And again, there's been no arrest, no arraignment, no conviction for Scott Erickson, despite that we know for sure he engages in cold plating, right? And he's been run through the insurance services office for insurance fraud. He's been sent through ALRS, automated license plate reader. And I got Scott Erickson driving an illegally unregistered car in Reno, Nevada on Virginia Street. I got him on Paradise Road in Las Vegas near the Hard Rock Cafe. I got him putting his car in for oil service at Midas in Las Vegas. I got him at Carmel Pebble Beach in a golf tournament, again, driving an illegal car with no registration. I got him at the LAX airport and Playa del Rey on the beach area in an illegally unregistered Mercedes-Benz high-performance sedan. He's all over the place using Nevada license plates from a different car. Yeah, it was a Mercedes, but it's a SUV. You're in the hot rod sedan. using the SUV license plate, cold plating. So do you understand what I mean here when I say the cold plating? People do that, number one, so they don't have to pay a registration fee, which is going to be really expensive. That's a $200,000 car. It's going to be at least $2,000 a year to register that car. Then it's to confuse your identification with the flock cameras. It's to conduct criminal activity like bank robbery or, killing kids in crosswalks. And it's to, when your vehicle is too hot, you just garage it and remove the plates and put them on a different car, or you sell them to some criminal cohort and have them run those plates around to create the illusion that someone stole your license plate, right? When it was you, you did it, right? Anyway, that's my video today on the speed contest for Scott and Rebecca. Is that we have cold plating, felony crimes going on. We have sports agent Jeff Boris, who's getting into UFC Steroid Fighters Union, wanting to promote kickboxing. And he's already pimping out and promoting Kurt Schilling and Barry Bonds and Jose Canseco and Scott Erickson and Tim Licksum, whatever his name is, from the San Francisco Giants. Do you see what I'm saying? He's clearly exempt person. Lance Armstrong, right? Cato Kalin, O.J. Simpson for decades, Scott Erickson are exempt. They can kill people. They can slap their girlfriends around, engage in a domestic violence. Scott Erickson has a domestic violence charge. They dropped it. He was not convicted. You see, there's people who are exempt in our military society. Okay? There are certain people that are exempt, and Scott Erickson is one of them. Rebecca Grossman, sadly, is not one. However, her husband, Peter, has his Anne Heche get-out-of-jail-free card because he lied like a rug. He said that Anne Heche succumbed to her burn wounds and died of infection at the West Hills Hospital, acute care hospital, and he was the spokesman of the burn unit, except they don't have a burn unit, and he is not an employee of the hospital. He's a plastic surgeon that does Botox and boob jobs. Doesn't have anything to do with no burns. So, someone has made promises to him knowing that his wife Rebecca would someday lose a civil case. And it looks like they could be liable to $50 million or more, depending on how Scott Erickson is treated by the jury on this. So, I'm looking at the case going to jury in the third week of June, and a resolution in terms of a settlement number to be announced by the Tour de France, like July 2nd, is probably when we'll learn what is the financial responsibility of Scott Erickson, which he's hoping for zero, and Rebecca Grossman, who, could be 50 to 100 million. And then Peter Grossman will have to pull his Anne Heche credit card out. And then, I don't know. Stay tuned, right? We don't know what's going to happen. Thanks for listening, everyone. And do like and share my videos because I am heavily shadow banned. Bye now.